Friends, on Wednesdays, we have been reading from this wonderful book called Standing at the Edge by Roshi Joan Halifax. And this particular book is all about participating with life in such a way that we notice when we come to the edge of our tolerance or the edge of skillful, wise action and effort. And it is that edge place that really encourages us to practice, to grow. It's that fertile soil of growth. And how Roshi defines it is anytime we go over the edge and overextend ourselves, we experience some kind of distress. Most of us know this as burnout. Most of us have experienced compassion fatigue, or we're so emotionally drained by some interaction, by some situation where we feel like we're running on empty, we don't have any fumes. We've overextended ourselves and we're experiencing some kind of negativity. On the other hand, we can also avoid getting close to that edge because we're scared, or we're anxious, or we're avoidant. We have some kind of aversion where we don't want to feel uncomfortable. And so we do everything we can to curate a life that we're never challenged. We're just going to stay asleep, frankly. And what ends up happening when we never get close to that edge state is we become rather apathetic. And many people in the recovery world are sort of in that place as usually a young response to pain and trauma. And what we do is we avoid feeling. And then what ends up happening is that sort of gets applied globally and generally to the point that we don't feel anything. And our development and our maturity is arrested, stunted. We don't grow. So this whole book is a beautiful thesis on how to work with that. And today we are going to be talking about mapping compassion, according to Roshi. So before we begin, I'm just going to say hello to a couple of more new friends. Patricia, I want to make sure I said hello to you. And just grab my glasses because I let in a couple of other people. All right, Matt's joined us again. Matthew is back. Hi, friends. Okay. All right. So, friends, hi, Omi Kemi. Am I saying your name right? Please correct me. Can you unmute? Oh, wait, hang on. Lo is going to unmute. Let you unmute yourself so you can help us pronounce your name properly.
Yeah, Julia, that was great.
Omi Kemi.
Yeah.
It's lovely to have you. Welcome to the Spokane Sangha.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. All righty, friends. I'm going to invite the chime to sing, and then we'll set the intention for our practice, and I'll share with you how to map compassion using the wisdom of Roshi Joan Halifax. I have this wonderful bowl. Do you see this, everybody? If you've never seen these bowls, I love this one. It's rope that you would use for a clothesline, and then it's wrapped with fabric and sewn together. And I didn't make this one, but I've made other ones, and it's a wonderful way to repurpose clothesline cord if you use a clothesline. Alrighty, friends. This beautiful sentiment of metta was painted by our wonderful artist, Sangha member Michelle in Florida. And this one reads, no joke, I did not plan this. This one reads, may you go to the edge of your comfort and be still a moment. May you go to the edge of your comfort and be still a moment. Let me give you a hint. If you hear that and the first thing that arises in your mind is, no, you know you are at your edge state. You've arrived. You've done it. It's perfect. So, friends, I just invite you to fully arrive to your practice today, fully arrive to yourself, and just take a quick moment to get in touch. Get in touch with your body. Is there any place in the body that's holding on to tension or stress? Maybe take a moment to be curious about the mood you're carrying around on your back like a shell, little turtle shell. That's your mood. Maybe take a moment to entertain any thoughts, and simply by coming into the awareness of your thoughts, you can create some distance between your consciousness, yourself, and these thoughts. And maybe these thoughts are pretty complicated and they've created a story, and take a look at that as well. And just see if you can observe it enough to have some space, some ventilation around it so that you don't have to feel reactive. You don't have to hold it in the body in any tight way. You don't have to hold it hostage in your emotional landscape in any way. You can just throw it up into the cosmos and let it float around for a little while. And then as we continue in our practice, just bring your attention to the breath if you want to. For some people, having the breath as an anchor is not particularly helpful. It's not reliable. So I would just invite you to trust your own wisdom, trust yourself. You know what is going to anchor you better than I. And settle in, lie down if you want to, enjoy this practice. I'd like to begin this reflection by simply highlighting the 4 questions that Roshi presents. And then I'm actually going to read this section. And these 4 questions have to do with cultivating compassion. We've been talking about what inhibits our compassion, what gets in the way. And the more we understand those conditions that both promote compassion and inhibit compassion, we can then learn how to discern different situations and act accordingly. These 4 questions are really designed to hone the focus on how to cultivate a compassionate presence in the face of suffering. The first question is, can we experience compassion if our attention is not balanced, grounded, clear, and sustaining? The second question is, can we be compassionate if we don't feel concern for others? The third question is, can compassion arise within us if we are lacking insight into what might serve to relieve the suffering of another? And the fourth question is it important to have the desire to relieve the suffering of another, even if we can't do anything directly? So these questions act as guides for us to consider some nuanced ways to deepen our capacity and expand our capacity for compassion and its expression in the world. This is what Roshi has to say. The more I saw the suffering caused by the absence of compassion, the more I realized that I needed to take a deeper look into compassion, try to unpack it, do the best I could to map it, and attempt to create pathways to access it. My first goal was to map compassion to train caregivers and others to be more effective in cultivating compassion as they encountered suffering. In a thought experiment, I asked myself 4 questions. Number 1, can we experience compassion if our attention is not balanced, grounded, clear, and sustaining? I thought about how clinicians are often distracted by their mobile devices and pagers, the pressure on them to meet quotas, and their frequent need to move quickly from patient to patient and more. It's not easy to be present for a patient's suffering when our attention is fragmented in this way. I remembered that neuroscientist Amishi Jha made the point that wherever our attention goes, our brains follow. Attention is the boss of the brain. Because attentional balance is challenging for people working in complex clinical situations, compassion may also be challenging. As clinicians' attention is often divided, distracted, and dispersed, something I call as the 3 Ds. To perceive suffering or anything clearly, we need attentional balance. Friends, I want to add to this piece, this particular part, that our attention and our awareness of distraction is essential to offer compassion and to receive it. And that receiving compassion is often something we forget or we put aside, but it is every bit as important because it serves as a foundation for the kind of compassion we can give. So when we're distracted, not only do we limit our capacity to offer compassion, we limit our capacity to receive it. The second question Roshi asked was, can we become compassionate if we don't feel concern for others? And let's just dispel any myth here right now. This is me talking. We don't feel concern for everyone. And if you think you do, I would, in a very friendly, joyful invitation, ask that you go sit with that for a little bit. Because the reality is, there are conditions in our lives where that feeling of not caring arises. And we don't offer compassion. We don't care. And to be able to observe that with a degree of neutrality rather than judgment or admonishment actually opens the way for us to cultivate compassion. Roshi writes, if we are feeling apathetic or are in denial about a person's suffering, or if we feel aversion toward that person, it won't be easy for compassion to arise. The meaning of pro-social is the opposite of anti-social. Pro-social behavior is about positive social connection, being affiliated, being helpful, and benefiting others. If our intention is self-centered, for example, we probably aren't being pro-social. Care, concern, kindness, tenderness, love, generosity, and even humility are all pro-social feelings that can be expressed through the medium of compassion. From what I've observed, compassion is not accessible without pro-social feelings. This is absolutely imperative when we consider the journey of recovery, which traditionally has been terribly antisocial. And so to reimagine recovery from a Buddhist perspective is to begin planting seeds of pro-social interactions, connections, acceptance, belonging. And friends, the place to begin that is the really courageous place of ourselves. To start planting those seeds of kindness and acceptance, of love and generosity in our own barren emotional landscapes. Places that we've rejected and avoided, places that we have allowed to become really inhospitable. And when we can start tending to our own inner emotional landscapes, that will by extension spread out into the world. And what we give out into the world only reinforces what we do internally. It's such a beautiful mutual cycle. Roshi says, then I asked myself a third question. Can compassion arise within us if we're lacking insight into what might serve to relieve the suffering of another? Of course not. In order to feel compassion, we have to have a degree of insight to discern what will be of benefit. She says, compassion involves having a deeper understanding of why it matters for us to care and who we really are. You may recall that on the Noble Eightfold Path, the first quality that we're trying to cultivate is wise understanding. Understanding the conditions surrounding any experience, any event. When we can be curious, when we can gently explore the experience and understand how nuanced it is and complex, this automatically develops and increases our capacity for insight. When we have insight, we'll have more access to compassion. Awareness and insight are sisters. When we have just the smallest degree of awareness, we have so very much. And finally, is it important to have the desire to relieve the suffering of another, even if we can't do anything directly? This time the answer was a firm yes. We can't always take embodied and direct action that might transform the suffering of another, but at least the desire to enhance their well-being is essential to compassion. I remember hearing Mathieu Ricard give the example of an airplane passenger who sees a man struggling in the ocean. When the near drowning man cannot see, what the near drowning man cannot see is that a bank of fog is hiding an island less than 100 yards away. Although the passenger in the plane can do nothing to help, She wants the best for the man in the water. Sometimes we are able to take action to serve someone who is suffering. Sometimes compassion is simply wanting a positive outcome for that person, even if we can't take action. And this is really important because our immature egos love when we feel helpless and ineffective. Oh, that is such a banquet of delight for our immature egos. That voice is so quick to tell us what a failure we are, how inept we are, how we should be doing this, how we should be doing that, on and on and on. It is so inflated. The spiritual practice is about maturing that voice and to recognize, oh, in this instance, I can't do anything. I really am helpless. That is true. And the truth is that the power of my prayer, the power of my compassionate thought, the comfort I might be offering someone else who feels just like me is something. It matters. To summarize this section, to map compassion, to create a pathway that cultivates more and more compassion. We want to decrease our distractions, to elevate our attention. That's the first thing. We want to cultivate pro-social feelings and ideas toward ourselves and others. We want to increase our capacity of insight and discernment so we can act accordingly in the most beneficial way. And finally, we want to pay attention to having a desire for the goodness of others, a desire to be of benefit. We want to pay attention to when we're rooting for someone, even if we can't do anything to change or shift an outcome. These are the building blocks of a compassionate life. And don't forget, friends, turning all of that attention on yourself is a powerful place to start. You don't have to perfect it. You just have to start there. Entertain it. Play with it. Offer it out to someone else, a close friend. Bring it back toward yourself. Practice. Offer it out to someone else, maybe a stranger. Bring it back to yourself. Offer it out again into the world to someone who might be challenging you. Come back to yourself. So many ways to practice. Friends, let's end our practice today by simply acknowledging that we are all here to shift our relationship to negative habit energy. And that practice, that awareness is an act of compassion for ourselves, and by extension is of benefit to so many other people. May your journey be gentle. May it be bright. May you have extraordinary confidence as you remember your resilience, your resourcefulness, and the limitless quality before you of compassion. Oh, so good. So with that, let's go ahead and end our practice with a dedication of merit. And I just want to invite you to close your eyes. I love the idea of working on ourselves, doing this inner work as cultivating a landscape, treating yourself as a rich, fertile place. I live on a farm. I have a beautiful place. I used to tend a garden that was about an acre, and I planted everything by hand. And I would hoe rows with my feet, bare feet. And it was a way for me to really get in touch literally with the earth and to have a sense of its quality. Sometimes the inner work begins at the level of the basics, the soil, amending the soil, adding richness to it, adding some presence to it. You know, you might not think that matters, but it does. The presence of you at your inner landscape, even if it feels barren, even if it feels prickly, even if it feels uncomfortable, it is so profound an act. Amend the soil of your inner landscape, and the seeds will come. May you find beauty there in small wonders. May you remember the majesty and nobility of your being here in all your weird humanness. May you know that your presence in the whole cosmos is rare. You are consciousness able to contemplate consciousness. As far as we know, this is the only place where that happens. Your reflections are healing and transformative. May you continue to bring that into the world so desperate to have it. Thank you for your practice, friends. We'll see you next time. Namaste.